everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Startuprad.io, your podcast show with startup news and interviews from Germany.
Hello, everybody. This is Jörn from Startuprad.io again. I am right now on a trip, just a little trip, because I'm right now in the lovely Social Impact Lab here in Frankfurt. And as you can already guess, I do have a guest here. Would you just like to briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, Jörn. Thanks for the time. I'm Luca Caruso, one of the co-founders of MEJO. MEJO is a startup that aims to improve the quality of life of millions of people living with diabetes.
At first, we might say, so you're in Social Impact Lab here, so it's a social startup?
Yes, it's a social startup because we serve this population that lives with diabetes, and we do it in a free way, making sure that people really have an impact in their quality of life. And we want really to, let's say, break the regular health system by providing everything for free. So this is where the big impact, the social impact, comes from.
And we should tell our listeners who have no clue about this what diabetes actually is.
Yes, diabetes is a disease or let's say a health condition. I don't really like to call it disease. It's a health condition, a metabolic health condition, where the body cannot metabolize the blood sugar, and this causes a lot of problems, becoming blind, to have problems with the feet, to really the way you eat. You cannot eat. Actually, you can, but you need to really control yourself because the blood sugar is unstable, so it goes up and down. It's called glucose, and this is really cause a lot of problems in the daily life of the patient.
So that means if you don't take care of your feet, you can even lose toes and all of this stuff. And you have usually a genetic disposition to receive it, and depending on your life, it breaks out or not. What we should also tell our listeners, then you have, depending on the severity level of diabetes, you have to inject yourself insulin and get a drop of blood every day and control your blood sugar, and then get an injection, because if you get too low, you can die from it, and if you get too high with the blood sugar, you just collapse and breathe very strong, and at one point you hopefully someone helps you, otherwise this could also end badly. So this is the condition, and we should also say to our listeners who have no clue about medicine, it's not infectious. So it's just genetic disease. And can you tell us a little bit about what MEJO does and who's behind it?
We have a startup where that's why I'm here. This is a very straight answer. No, what we do really is solution. So we have a web app, so it's also an app that help people to learn more practical skills and tips how to deal with the daily life of diabetes. So, for example, how to count carbohydrates, really how to cook properly, what to cook, what not to cook, and how to cook, because it also depends on how long you cook food. That can generate problems or not. And basically, we provide education in general, and as well as cooking advices, tips, and recipes. In the future, we will also tap in the sport or physical activities, and all of this needs to be basically encountered or part of a community. This is where changes really in the daily life take place.
So you actually do more than a cookbook for diabetes patients.
It's a provocative statement, but yes, definitely.
The listeners cannot see, but you're smiling.
Yes, if I can hear me. Yeah, definitely it's something that it's actually personalized. We have an algorithm behind that makes sure that every patient has got his own basically journey, depending on what they need to learn, we have a data scientist behind that is really learning what people do. And
do the single patients need to log in and give some of the data so it's individualized?
Yes, let's say that some data are passive, and depending on how they move into the app and the platform, and some others need to be active, of course. like which type of diabetes do you have, which type of condition do you have, the type 1 or type 2, or you are a caretaker, and so on. So depending on the what you need, and then some are passive, some are active. They need to put their data themselves, of course. Depending on what they eat, for example, if they say, okay, I've eaten salad, then they possibly need salad if I want you to advise you what to eat in the evening. That's for sure.
I see. And what is your aim? What do you want to achieve with this startup? You just want to make life easier, more controllable for the patients?
Yes, exactly. What is in the market right now in terms of digital health are, we call it trackers, basically people that check their blood, their glucose every day. This is what they have, and they get nice and useful graphs. What we want to do is to do a step further. Normal people are the average man like me and like you, and they want simply to have an easier life. And that's our aim, to make life easier with practical advices. With you wake up with something, MEJO is there to teach you, to accompany you in a friendly way. Our aim is to really make the average diabetic patient live better.
And who's the team behind it?
So we are 4 co-founders. One is Armando, and is the CEO of the company. He's experienced entrepreneur with as well a lot of experience with patient empowerment, meaning that is also part of the European Federation for patients with respiratory diseases, where he is the chair of the education for patients. So it's really experience in terms of helping patients living better. Second one is Nils, which is an experienced person in finance and consulting of startups. Then is Lorena, that is originally from Colombia, but she actually lives in New York. She has been living for the last 30 years. She is a very experienced patient educator. Actually, she was the chair of the Patient Educator Association in USA. So we have a very strong and experienced team. And myself, I'm Luca, and let's say I have more experience in digital health. I work in pharma the last 6 years. And beside that, I enjoy giving classes to masters in Barcelona in digital health. So this is the board of the founders of the team of MEJO. We have also another building the team right now. So we have Maria, Cristina, that she's working marketing at the moment, and also Stefan working in the IT, and a data scientist, Juan Fran. I have to mention, part of the team is a very mixed team. We have German people on board, Italian, myself, Spanish, and this is why it's really cool to work together, because we are so multicultural.
And from what I take right now, you are right now located in Frankfurt. You have some people in Barcelona, some people in New York, and how do you manage to work together?
Really interesting. Here is the base, here in the Social Impact Lab, but
Yes,
Frankfurt is
gravity.
exactly.
Okay.
But beside that, we are now opening, let's say, a branch in Barcelona, where we are going to work with marketing especially and operations. We have to say that our market is Spanish-speaking countries, so that's why we are opening in Barcelona this.
And can you tell us a little bit why you're going for Spanish-speaking countries? Is it a cultural influence on your team? Is there a big market market demand? Or could you tell our listeners a little bit more about this?
Okay, there's actually several reasons. One of them is that the team itself has experience in the Spanish-speaking countries, so that it's very important when you want to build something, because we know the customers, we know how they perceive things, and this is very important. So this is one of the reasons why, possibly the main reason why we go to the Spanish-speaking countries. And secondly is that we have noticed that these countries are underserved, let's say, in terms of education and help, basically, in this field. This is just two of the reasons.
And for everybody who's listening out there, because we know we have people downloading those interviews in London, in New York, in Cupertino, as well as in Bangalore. Namaste out there. And can you tell our listeners out there who don't know the Spanish-speaking area, how many people we are actually talking about?
People actually having diabetes, well, globally we have 422 million people living with diabetes. Seems crazy, but it's growing. And actually, it's a growing number, unfortunately. Just can say that it will be 465 by 2040, so will be 10% in 20 years, something like this. So it's a crazy number. And secondly, in the Spanish-speaking countries, we have 33 million people living with diabetes. So, and I think it's a pretty big market to tackle.
And I would also be interesting how you then integrate with your tool into life of the patients, because what I can tell right now is you're not a tracker. So basically you could work like with the contact lenses from that is Google rumor to work on it that can estimate your blood sugar, right? So you could work with this data, and what could you actually do with data like this?
What we do with the data. So far, there are a lot of data in terms of diagnostic and treatment, meaning data of how people are diagnosed and about the tracker, so how people take the intake, blood pressure, sugar, exactly. This type of data has been covered so far. What is really missing is behavioral data. What people do when they're home, when they go to the cinema, how do they feel? And this is very important to improve the quality of life. This is where the big advantage is as well, yes. But also if you are sad, what happens if you're sad? What do you do when you're sad? You know, and so this type of data is something missing, and this is very important. And this is actually where healthcare is going. They need to catch this data, because you cannot make a personalized medicine or health unless you know what people do during the daily life. And this is where our big advantage is.
The more I learn about it, the more interested I get, but also in a pretty different topic, because right now I'd like to learn a little bit more what actually brought you to make this solution, how you ended up there. So that would be something I would be curious about.
Okay, actually, I always, let's say, love to help people in some different ways. Then I entered the field of health and digital health, and I saw that the patient was left out, as a stakeholder was left out. And now there is a lot of talk about, we need to integrate this stakeholder into the health system. And I thought, wow, but I think the patient needs some education. So what we did is we started with a simple course online that we advertised through our fan page on Facebook. And curious enough, we had 3 courses. We launched 3 courses completely for free. And the result is that we have more than 7,000 people already registered, more than almost 7,000 also on Facebook likes. And we had those people without really invested any resources on marketing. So we said, wow, there is a really big need on that. And what we did is simply, okay, now we need to go forward. We got a lot of insights from people taking our courses, and we say, okay, we need to develop something which is much smarter than simple courses, and that's where we got here.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about you personally?
Okay.
Especially how you ended up in Frankfurt and how you personally ended up with this idea.
Actually, I have to go back to... So I've been studying a master degree in Barcelona, and actually started working in a pharma company, which is in the, let's say, surroundings of Frankfurt also, based like the headquarters. So from Spain, I moved to Frankfurt for work, basically. And that's how I ended up in Frankfurt.
That is quite a story you hear often from people who end up in Frankfurt. Yeah, work brought me here. But it also means there are a lot of jobs here, right?
Absolutely. I think we have to really say that it's a different environment from Spain to here, especially because I came when there was the economic crisis really crushing Europe. And that's why I felt completely different feeling here. People are not afraid of losing jobs, and there are a lot of jobs opportunities out there. So it's a very more stable situation, let's say.
And that also means there's a big competition between, let's say, there's a big decision you gotta make between starting a startup and having a potential risk or going for a job. Why did you actually drop your job and go for the startup? He's looking a little bit clueless.
No, I think it's all about yourself and your personality. My personality is okay. I've learned a lot in a big corporation, but it's just feeling inside. I need to help people. I need to have it. I need to do it. There's no money that it stops you. I mean, the salary and it's very appealing in big corporations, but definitely the adrenaline you get when you start something and you see positive results, you cannot pay it. Nothing else that pays you that way. So I think I advise a lot of people that are thinking about starting their own startup to make this big step.
Like a company we all know, say just do it, right?
It's an advertisement, it's a hidden advertisement, but yes.
Can you tell the people when MEJO will be available and how to find it? Because we will also provide our listeners with a link, of course. Go to www.startuprad.io and search for the MEJO interview, MEJO, exclamation mark. And then you can find the show notes. And in the show notes, we put the link,
which is www.mejodiabetes.com.
And it's available in which languages?
So far, it's available in Spanish. We will see in the future, but so far in Spanish. Yes, as you asked before, we will be launching in 10 days, which is or a few days from now. It's 28th of November. We launch the app and will be available on the Apple Store, Google Play, and on the website.
Cool. Is there anything else important we've forgotten so far?
No, just download it.
Okay, and then there comes the fun question. Oh,
it's completely for free.
Yeah, it's a social startup, totally. Oh, how are you guys financed?
Find ourselves with, let's say, business angels and venture capital. Definitely in the future we will have of course, have a business model with a return, which is not immediate, but because we want to gain, let's say, critic mass in the website and on the app, and then we will be, of course, creating a premium version, I would say, for the future.
And your intention is more to cover your costs and provide the solution to more people?
Well, we are a social startup, but we are still entrepreneurs. So the idea is really to create a very big added value to people and keep improving, but definitely it needs to have a return. Otherwise, it would definitely not make sense. We have tested several business models, so ways to get a return, and at least 3 of them worked. So I think we need to decide, but it's better decide on things that work rather than things that don't work, correct?
Totally. So now the fun question. Okay. If you could describe your life either as a book title, as a movie title, or a combination. Too bad our listeners cannot see you. Or a combination of both. How would you describe it? No break. You have to do it live.
You're very naughty. Let's say that I always move with my heart and feelings rather than with my brain. Let's say go big, I would say.